My name is Victoria Harper, and my story begins in Mill Creek, Ohio, a town so small, you could blink and be halfway through it. It wasn't much more than a few stoplights, a gas station, and a church that doubled as a community hall, but for me, it was the center of the universe. At the heart of it all was my family's pride and lifeblood, Harper's Home Plate, a warm little diner with flickering neon signs, red vinyl booths, and the ever-present scent of frying bacon and burnt coffee. That diner was my entire childhood. I grew up watching my mom, Sharon Harper, serve pie slices with a tired smile, her lipstick always a little faded by the afternoon rush. My dad, Gary, worked the kitchen like a machine, scrubbing pots with those hard, calloused hands and keeping the griddle going even when his back ached. They poured every ounce of their love into keeping the business afloat, patching leaks with duct tape and paying bills 1 week late at a time. By the time I was 16, I understood what struggle looked like. College was never off the table because of my grades. I'd always done well in school, but because I could see the lines deepening around my mom's eyes and the way my dad sighed over stacks of unpaid invoices. I wasn't going to be another bill. I wanted to give them something they never had: peace. That's when I made a decision. I took a part-time job at the diner, helped with paperwork, and used the free Wi-Fi after hours to take online classes. I taught myself French using grainy YouTube videos and old textbooks from the library. Why French? Because every now and then, a tourist would pass through Mill Creek on their way to somewhere else, and they'd speak about places like Nice and Lyon like they were fairy tales. Those brief conversations lit a spark in me. By the time I turned 20, I was working remotely for a travel agency in Cleveland, helping French-speaking clients plan their dream vacations across the US. I was still in Ohio, but my eyes were already overseas. And that's what brought me to Chicago. I landed a contract planning a major travel conference for French tourists at the Grand Linden Hotel in the Windy City. Compared to Mill Creek, the place looked like a palace. Gleaming marble floors, high ceilings with dripping chandeliers, and employees who spoke in soft, elegant tones. It was intimidating. But it was there that I met Daniel Walker. Daniel was the hotel's lead concierge. 30, clean-cut, and with a jawline that looked like it was drawn by a sculptor. He had an effortless way of charming guests, slipping between English and French like it was nothing. He noticed me the first week, offered me a cappuccino in the hotel lounge with a wink and a line in French that made me blush. We started talking. First about work. Then about our lives. He opened up about losing his dad young and growing up in Oak Park, just outside Chicago, raised by his mother, Elaine Walker, who had once been a prominent figure in the local country club scene. He told me how they'd lost most of their wealth after his dad passed, and how his mother never quite adjusted to a simpler life. I told him about my parents. The diner. The sacrifices. The dreams. And just like that, we bonded, two people who wanted to make life easier for the ones they loved. 6 months later, I was head over heels and moving in with him. That's when the fairy tale started to crack. Moving into the Walker estate. Elaine's home in Oak Park was something straight out of an old Southern novel: wide staircases, antique furniture, crystal everything. But the warmth, it was missing. The first time I walked through that door with my overnight bag, I felt like a guest overstaying her welcome. Elaine met me with a smile as polished as her pearls and eyes that never quite softened. At 62, she carried herself like royalty. But underneath the Chanel perfume and silk scarves, I saw the desperation. She was a woman clinging to a past she could no longer afford. "Which college did you attend, Victoria?" she asked me over dinner during my first week there, her tone polite but ice-cold. "I didn't go," I replied. "I started working after high school." She paused, dabbing her lips with a linen napkin. Oh, how practical. From that moment, I was under constant, silent evaluation. Not a daughter-in-law. Not even a guest. More like, staff. I tried to make it work. I really did. While Daniel worked long concierge hours, I worked from the upstairs den, developing a travel app I'd been building in secret, a platform connecting tourists to local guides across the globe. My dream. My escape plan. But to Elaine, I was just the girl on her computer. She'd interrupt investor meetings to remind me that the windows needed wiping or that she only ate a certain brand of jam. She'd criticize my cooking, my cleaning, even the way I set the table. "You're home all day, sweetheart," she'd say, her voice laced with sugar and arsenic. Surely it's not too much to ask. Daniel brushed it off as mom being mom. But every day it chipped at me. The final straw wasn't a single moment, but 1,000 tiny ones. Like when she told me I didn't know how to properly vacuum a guest room. Or when she said Daniel deserved someone who elevated him. Or when she dropped hints about taking a trip to Europe with Daniel, but not me. One morning, she said it out loud. "You'll keep the house in order while Daniel and I are gone, won't you?" The "we" in that sentence stabbed me. I confronted Daniel that night. He swore it was a misunderstanding. That I was coming too. But when I said I didn't want to go, that I was done pretending everything was fine, he snapped. "You're being unreasonable. She's just trying her best. You're the one making this difficult." That's when I knew. He wasn't my partner anymore. He was her shield. The next morning, I sat across from both of them at breakfast. Elaine buttered her toast like she hadn't wrecked my spirit, and Daniel scrolled through his phone like the tension in the room didn't exist. I cleared my throat. "Elaine, you're trying to leave me behind on purpose. Aren't you?" She didn't flinch. "If you want to come, come. But let's be honest, Victoria, you wouldn't appreciate Europe. You're just a high school graduate who plays on her laptop all day." That was the moment. The line I wouldn't cross. I told her about my app, the clients, the platform. "I've been paying the bills around here," I said. "Your groceries. Your utilities. Your life." She laughed. A cold, cutting laugh. "You call that a business? You're playing pretend. Daniel is the one holding this family up. And Daniel." He sighed. "Just apologize, Victoria. You're making a scene." I stood. "You want me gone? Fine." And I left. My new apartment in downtown Chicago was small, noisy, and overlooked a brick wall. But it was mine. And that meant everything. I worked harder than ever. Coded through the night. Sent pitch decks to angel investors. Made every mistake in the book and learned fast. My app, Wondernest, launched 3 months later and took off like wildfire. French tourists loved it. Travel guides signed up in droves. By the time I turned 29, Wondernest had expanded to 15 countries, raked in $20 million in revenue, and attracted top-tier investors. I moved to a beachfront home in San Clemente, California. My parents. I flew them out. They now live in a cozy guest house on my property, walking the beach every morning, living the life they sacrificed for me to have. That alone made it worth it. 3 months after I left Oak Park, my phone rang. Illinois area code. I picked up. It was Elaine. But the arrogance was gone. "Victoria," she said, her voice frantic, "we're drowning in bills. The lights, the mortgage, the cards." I sat on my sun-drenched porch, coffee in hand. "Didn't you know?" I said. "I paid for everything while I was there. You had no idea what it cost because you never bothered to ask." Daniel took the phone. "You're my wife. You owe us." I almost laughed. "I'm not your wife anymore, Daniel. You let your mother humiliate me, and you stayed silent. You chose her." I paused. "Get jobs. Cut expenses. Sell the pearls." I did it. So can you. Daniel now works double shifts at a downtown hotel. Elaine sold most of her designer bags and is reportedly considering work as a part-time etiquette coach. Fitting, I suppose. I don't feel bitter. Not anymore. They made their bed. I just didn't lie in it. And me. I'm living proof that you can be underestimated, looked down on, cast aside, and still rise. I built my empire brick by brick, line by line of code, fueled not by revenge, but by a vision of something better. I am Victoria Harper, and this is just the beginning. It was a crisp October morning when the past came knocking, literally. I had just wrapped up a global partnership call with a tourism board in Barcelona and stepped onto the deck of my San Clemente home, soaking in the scent of ocean breeze and eucalyptus trees. My parents were inside, fussing over pancakes and arguing about which of them was worse at Wordle. And then I heard it. 3 sharp knocks on the front door. I opened it slowly, expecting a courier or maybe the contractor redoing the backyard patio. But no. It was Daniel. Behind him, arms crossed and sunglasses perched like a crown, stood Elaine Walker. I didn't move. I just blinked. Victoria, Daniel said, his voice lower, less sure of itself now. We drove down. We really need to talk. My stomach turned, but my face stayed still. You drove here from Chicago? We sold the Lexus, Elaine said, stepping forward with that same haughty tilt of her chin. Bought a used Toyota and packed what we could. We've had some hard months. I stepped outside and pulled the door shut behind me, not letting them in. Daniel looked thinner. Hollow, like stress had been eating him from the inside out. Elaine, though tired, still wore pearls and had her nails freshly manicured, as if she were pretending the last few months hadn't happened. I folded my arms. Why are you here? Daniel glanced at his mother, then back at me. We're in over our heads, Vic. We tried everything. I picked up weekend shifts. Mom. I sold my jewelry, she cut in tightly. We're staying in a motel 2 exits down. It's not ideal. I let the silence sit between us. Elaine shifted. We thought, perhaps, you might help us. A small loan. Just to get back on our feet. Until Daniel finds something more stable. And what would I be helping you get back to? I asked, biting back the venom. Your old life. Your condescending jabs. The silk robes and tea time. Daniel stepped forward, eyes pleading. I messed up, okay? I didn't protect you. I see that now. I thought I was doing the right thing, keeping peace. I let her walk all over you. Elaine's jaw tightened, but she stayed quiet. I should have stood up, Daniel continued. But I was too scared to lose both of you. And I lost you anyway. I let his words hang. Honest, finally, but too late. You called me a leech, I said, turning to Elaine. You mocked everything I built. Now you're standing in front of my home, the one I paid for, asking for a handout. It's not a handout, she hissed, pride flaring up again. It's a chance. I raised an eyebrow. For you. Or for him. Because from where I'm standing, you burned through every cent your husband left behind, belittled the only person paying your bills, and now you think I'll just forget. I'm his mother, she snapped. You owe me respect. I'm my own woman, I shot back. And you owe me an apology. Daniel rubbed his face, frustrated. Please, Vic. I'm not asking you to save us. Just help us breathe. I'm sleeping in my car when the motel's full. I'm begging you. I didn't expect that. The words stung not because I wanted to take him back, but because the man who once held me as I sobbed from exhaustion was now completely undone. I sighed, rubbing my temples. I'll do this once, I said. I'll wire enough to cover 2 months of rent in Oak Park, not a luxury condo. Not some Clubview place. A basic apartment. After that, you're on your own. Elaine opened her mouth, but I cut her off. This isn't charity. It's closure. Daniel nodded slowly, defeated. Thank you. Really. And one more thing, I added, narrowing my eyes. Elaine, don't ever show up at my doorstep again unless you come to say thank you and asterisk nothing else star. No snide comments. No judgment. No lies. Her lips pressed into a thin line. You've changed. Good, I said. That means I've grown. Later that night, I wired the money. My mother scolded me gently over dinner. You shouldn't have, honey. Some people don't deserve your kindness. Maybe, I said. But I needed it for me. To end it on my terms. I never heard from Elaine again. But Daniel. He emailed, months later, just a few lines. I'm working front desk at a 2-star motel in Cicero. Still making mistakes. Still learning. But I think of you every day. I hope you're happy. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Because I was. And I was just getting started. 6 months passed. 6 months since I'd stood on my sunlit California porch, told Daniel and Elaine the truth they never wanted to hear, and wired them their final lifeline. And not once did I look back. Until the day my company, Wanda Nest, was invited to speak at the Global Tourism and Innovation Summit in Chicago. The irony wasn't lost on me. I hadn't been back to that city since the night I walked out of Daniel's house with a duffel bag and nothing but my broken pride. Now I was flying in first class, sipping champagne, reviewing a keynote presentation that would be broadcast to over 30 countries. The venue. The Grand Linden Hotel. The very place I met Daniel. Full circle. The lobby hadn't changed. Gleaming floors. Staff moving like clockwork. The same marble columns. Only this time, I wasn't the assistant fixing schedules or checking luggage. This time, I was the guest of honor. My suite had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river. There was a fruit basket, a handwritten note from the hotel GM, and a bottle of Dom Perignon chilling in a silver bucket. I sat down, pulled out my phone, and stared at the notification that had just come in. Subject: request for meeting, Daniel Walker. I didn't reply. I didn't delete it either. I just let it sit. When I walked onto that stage the next morning, the ballroom lit up with camera flashes and applause. I wore a sharp navy pantsuit, my hair pulled into a low bun, a custom gold pendant around my neck, one my dad had made for me using his old wedding ring melted down into the shape of a compass. For direction, he'd said. Since you never needed anyone else's map. I smiled at the crowd. My name is Victoria Harper. I come from a town where the population could fit in this ballroom twice over. My parents owned a diner. I didn't go to college. And yet, here I am, running a $50 million company connecting travelers to locals around the globe. Why? Because I knew two things from a young age: how to listen and how to work. They stood up when I finished. And at the back of the ballroom, just near the exit doors, I saw him. Daniel. He looked stunned. Dressed in a cheap suit. Pale. Alone. I turned and walked off stage. Later that evening, there was a knock at my suite door. I opened it to find Daniel, holding a single white envelope. I saw your talk, he said quietly. You were brilliant. I didn't say anything. Just waited. He cleared his throat. I wanted to give you this. He handed me the envelope. Inside was a simple, cleanly folded letter. Dear Victoria, I don't expect you to forgive me, but I needed to say it out loud. I'm sorry. For not defending you. For choosing convenience over courage. For mistaking silence for peace. I lost the best thing in my life trying to protect a version of my family that no longer existed. You didn't need me to believe in you. You already did. But I want you to know I believe in you now. I always will. Daniel. I stared at it for a while, heart steady. Why now? I asked finally. He looked down. Because I saw what you became. And I finally realized what I destroyed. His honesty would have broken me once. Now. I pitied him. Daniel, I said, soft but firm. I didn't need you to believe in me then. I needed you to respect me. And when you didn't, when your mother called me a leech, and you told me to apologize. That's when you lost me. He nodded, shoulders sagging. She passed away, he said quietly. 2 months ago. Cancer. Fast. I blinked, surprised. But not shattered. I'm sorry for your loss, I said sincerely. Because I was. For his pain. Not for the past. I know I don't deserve your time, he added. I just wanted to say goodbye. And thank you. I watched him walk away without asking him to stay. I closed the door and took a deep breath. It felt like a chapter closing. Not with a bang, but with clarity. After the summit, I flew straight to Mill Creek. My parents didn't know I was coming. I walked into Harper's home plate just before closing, the bell over the door still jingling the same way it had when I was 6. My dad was refilling the ketchup bottles. My mom was wiping down the counter with a cloth older than me. When they looked up and saw me, they froze. And then my mom dropped the rag and pulled me into the tightest hug I'd ever felt. You're home, she whispered, teary. For a few days, I smiled. But always in here. I pointed to my chest. We sat in that booth by the window, the one I used to hide in with a second-hand laptop and a dream too big for our town. And I told them everything. About the talk. The hotel. The letter. The moment I knew I'd never need to look back. My dad raised his root beer. To not just surviving, but soaring. 6 months later, I stood in Paris. My parents were beside me, holding hands, their eyes wide with wonder. We were staying at a restored farmhouse in Provence, and my app had arranged every piece, from the driver who picked them up to the cheesemaking class my mom couldn't stop raving about. As we walked through a lavender field, my dad reached into his pocket and handed me something. It was a small, weathered compass. The real one he'd used as a kid. Thought you might want the original, he said. Since you've always known exactly where you're going. I clutched it tightly and smiled. I wasn't that girl from the diner anymore. I was the woman who turned every sneer into fuel. I was Victoria Harper, founder, daughter, survivor. And no one would ever underestimate me again.